Hi guys, Ryan here with another social skills video. I've been coaching social skills full time for over 11 years now, and I'm going to give my analysis as a social skills coach on the Pianogate situation. I've been watching a ton of videos on it. I find the whole situation quite interesting in terms of the politics involved, like most people probably do, but also in terms of the social stuff that's going on. So I'm going to give some analysis on some of the more subtle things that lots of people are likely to have missed in terms of body language, the subtext, and how people are trying to sort of maneuver and win the situation for their agenda. For those of you who aren't familiar with the situation, I might suggest watching some videos first. But basically, this guy called Dr. K, or Brendan, plays on a lot of public pianos. I didn't know about him until this whole video was circulating. And he was playing at St Pancras station, which I go past quite a lot. I actually looked for him the other day and he wasn't there, unfortunately. And he was playing the piano and live streaming. A group of Chinese people who were waving Chinese flags and wearing red scarves come up to him and said to stop recording or to delete the recording.
Do you need to, I see, because we're here film for Chinese TV as well.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, did you film as all of us in your cameras?
I don't know. Are we allowed?
No.
We're not allowed.
Yeah, so
We're not allowed?
You're not allowed because we're for Chinese TV.
Oh, okay.
This is non-disclosable.
It's not disco?
Yeah, not disclosable.
It's no disco?
It's not disclosable.
It's not disclosable?
Yeah.
Oh really?
And he basically said no, because it's not against the law to do that. And then the situation started getting quite hostile.
It doesn't matter.
Show me the Chinese flag.
Why you're touching her? Stop touching her! Don't touch her, please. Do not touch her.
And then the police came along. And yeah, some interesting points I found out as well, looking into the story a bit more, is that in the background was a woman in a grey coat who apparently had a warning put out about her by MI5, a British intelligence agency, saying that they suspect that she's a spy. But as far as I remember, they said that there's not enough evidence to convict her at the moment. Before the live stream that you can watch, you can actually see that the group of Chinese people were being quite friendly, or at least some of them were being quite friendly to Brendan / Dr. K. I'll call him Dr. K because it sounds cooler. And I also found out that one of the guys in the video is an editor, I think, for Financial Times. So they all seem to have some quite strong ties to the CCP and be quite supportive of the Chinese government, etc. At the start here, you'll see that Brendan says that there is some surreptitious behaviour going on in the station.
So hit the like button, I'll do a few songs for you, and just stay there because there's a lot of kind of surreptitious activity going on in the station. I might need your help. So stay there, hit the like button, let's rock and roll.
If you look up the meaning of surreptitious, it could look a bit like he's forewarning of events to come. I personally think that that's a coincidence and that he wasn't aware that something was about to kick off. Now, there is a video that shows some of the people in the other group being friendly to Dr. K before this live stream that he's posted starts. And what some people are saying is that when the other woman in the grey coat in the background turned up, their attitudes changed.
I just remember, Jim, I've got the microphone attached now.
So between the points of 5 minutes and about 9.5 minutes, some interesting things happen while he's playing the piano. So one of the girls in the group speaks to Dr. K's friend and gets engaged in a conversation with him, and so does one of the other girls. And basically what I think happened, which a few other people have also been saying, is that when this woman, the suspected spy, turned up, they suddenly wanted the video to be deleted and for their faces to not be shown.
According to the Chinese law, we're not allowed to film you, is that right?
So basically, we will much appreciate it when you are, whatever you're doing, that you don't put our face on TV.
Yes.
Okay, so what will happen if
Just don't do it, please. I will really appreciate that. Okay. We just very sensitive about this issue. I'm really sorry.
And the idea is that they were filming for Chinese New Year, and they were trying to create an impression to the Chinese public that everyone in the UK is supportive of the Chinese government and stuff, so kind of a propaganda piece. And this woman, who is a suspected spy, was involved in the organisation of it, so she didn't want to be seen with the group. That's what some people are saying. Personally, I believe that's the case, because after she turns up, first of all, you can see one of the other girls start speaking to one of Brendan's friends. At this point, I believe that she is asking about whether they're filming, etc. And then a bit later on, they all sort of mobilise as a group all at once, apart from the suspected spy woman and the other guy who's one of the boyfriends of one of the girls in the group, in a mob. And it seems like their only thing on their minds is, we have to get this person to delete the recording, and they're not going to take no for an answer. So it definitely seems like that woman has told them, like, you have to get rid of this recording, and she's in some way the boss of the others. So at the start, you can see one of the girls in the group is speaking to Dr. K's friend, and I reckon that she's discussing with him about, like, are you filming, etc. Just a side point, you can see someone who I think is in the group with them. There was also a Japanese TV crew as well, if you look into some of the backstories. But I'm pretty sure that guy's also with them. He's got a gimbal and he's filming them. So it kind of takes away credibility to their argument that he needs to delete the footage of them, even more so. So she talks to Brenda's friend, then she goes back, and then they return, and they return as a group. So what I think has happened here, she's asked him about, are you filming, etc. Then she's gone back, discussed it with the woman who's a suspected spy, and then they've all come back and been told, you have to get that deleted, and they're not going to take no for an answer. So that's why they start quickly escalating to more and more hostile tactics.
Judging, stop judging. Why are you calling us communists? Why?
Because you've got a communist flag.
We got the flag of any country. Why are you discriminating a different country?
I'm not discriminating.
Why are you discriminating a different country?
Why are you getting excited?
Because you're
getting your knickers
discriminating
in
another country.
How am I discriminating?
Yeah, you're saying
playing
we're
the race
communists,
card,
we're holding a flag.
Yeah, because you've got a communist flag in your hand.
Oh my God.
Is that not? Is that
Please educate yourself, all right?
that's
Please
not a
educate yourself.
So that's not a
A
communist flag.
country is different from the political agenda. That is not the same
Is that
matter.
a communist flag,
That's
yes
not
or
the
no?
Same, that's
So
not
it's
the same
not.
thing.
Because they don't have the option in their mind of he's not going to delete footage. So at about 9 minutes and 20 seconds roughly, the first girl comes over and asks Dr. K if they've got them in, if he's filmed them and they're in the footage. And first of all, he says, I don't know. So just to be fair to the situation, I do, like, basically everyone in the whole world think that Dr. K is in the right, obviously. But just to be fair to the situation, I think it's possible that he might have said a bit of a lie here and said, I don't know, because he's trying to figure out the situation and see what they want, and he doesn't want to just say, yeah, I have been, straight away.
I will see, because we're here film for Chinese TV as well.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, did you film us, all of us, in your cameras? Are you gonna use it?
I don't know. Are we allowed?
Which might escalate things, and he's obviously sensed some level of hostility here. They've started coming over as a group. So I'm pretty sure his emotions here are starting to get a bit concerned. Maybe he is saying, I don't know, because he didn't understand her. Maybe he's saying, I don't know, because he doesn't know if they're in footage or not. Although I think that's unlikely, because he was pretty clearly filming them earlier. So he says, are we allowed? And she starts to say no. And you can see at, I think, 9:26 that he's starting to look a bit disappointed. So the situation has turned from friendly to now they've come over with this agenda that they have to get his, which is a very hostile mindset. It's like, the option of him not deleting the footage is not in their minds, and they come over as a group. So that's a pretty hostile mindset from this group of people. He's started to get disappointed because she's saying that, no, you're not allowed to have the footage. You can see that they're all starting to watch and gather around in the back, apart from the woman who's a suspected spy and one of the boyfriends of one of the girls. She starts to say that it's not disclosable. He starts to say no disco. I think it's possible that he was attempting to try to set up a bit of a wordplay joke here about there not being disco allowed, because obviously he's making music and stuff, which is pretty clever on his part.
It's not disclosable.
It's not disco.
Yeah, not disclosable.
It's no disco.
It's not disclosable.
It's not disclosable.
Yeah.
Oh, really?
Obviously, it's not going to work because they've come over with this sort of hostile mentality. By the way, I think that Dr. K handled this situation, as speaking as a social skills coach full-time for over 11 years. I would give him a 97, 98 or 99 out of 100 for how he dealt with this situation. It was absolute, really amazing social skills as far as I'm concerned. He stayed calm throughout the whole thing. He responded to the hostility in a way that was measured and didn't put himself in any further trouble, and he stuck up to himself with a police officer at the end. So he seems like a pretty cool music guy. He seems like he's out and about a lot. He seems like an older person. All of those things tend to align with people having better social skills. So good job to Dr. K if you're watching this. So the girl starts to say that it's not allowed, and then Brendan's friend comes over, and after Dr. K says, "Are we going to get in trouble?" and he says that they'll put you in prison. So this is the first time of many times where Dr. K's friend tries to diffuse the situation with, first of all, with a joke. So he makes a joke, causes everyone to laugh apart from Dr. K, who doesn't laugh because he's starting to feel, I think at the moment, at this point, he's feeling disappointed, a bit sad, and also he's starting to feel like it's not really fair because we're in the UK and that's not really how things work here. And I feel like even at this early point, he's starting to feel like they're trying to impose what they want onto him. So the girl comes over and starts talking to him about removing the footage. That guy, his name is Newton, apparently. He sort of steps in. He clearly sees himself as the dominant figure of the group. Apparently he works at the Financial Times in the UK, which is a newspaper, obviously about finances and economics and stuff. And he butts in for her and starts talking for her. I guess some people might say that he was mansplaining. I wouldn't say that. But he is definitely a sign that he feels like he's the dominant person in that group. It seems like the woman who's a suspected spy is the dominant figure out of the whole group. Obviously, she's not in this part of the conversation. She's at the back now. And he says, what we're trying to say is, and starts explaining for her. So this is just one sign of many of this guy feeling like he's superior to the other people. At about 10 minutes, Newton puts his hand to the camera as the person who's helping Dr. K filming points the camera towards him. So I don't necessarily think that is him doing something bad here if he doesn't want to be filmed.
So basically, we will much appreciate it when you are, whatever you're doing, that you don't put our face on TV.
Yes.
However, it does just add like an extra piece of hostility to the situation, because now he's done a physical action towards the camera person, which just adds tension to the situation. Here about 10:05, 10:06, Newton says, "Just don't do it, please," not really offering much reasoning as to why he doesn't want them to film him. So he shows a consistent attitude of someone who it feels superior to others, doesn't really care about other people's feelings and only cares about his own stuff, and thinks that he is in some kind of position of power and wants to dominate other people without having to be reasonable about it, and without having to explain his reasoning behind stuff. So obviously seems a lot like they've gone in with this mindset of, we have to get it deleted, doesn't matter what it takes. So that kind of aligns with that, but he definitely seems like that kind of character anyway. Side note, he is now apparently selling t-shirts that say "Don't touch her" on, which kind of shows some elements of being a pretty shitty character, really. The fact that he has done this stuff where he obviously is in the wrong, as far as I can see, people in China also think that he was acting in a way that was bad, and he's trying to make money off it. I doubt many people have bought these t-shirts, hopefully not. So Newton says, "Just don't do it, please," without giving any explanation, which is a hostile thing to do. You're demanding something without giving a reason why. And he doesn't have any comfort built with Dr. K. So this is a person he doesn't know, who's come over and is demanding something without adding any extra reasoning. So most people would start to get either very annoyed or intimidated at this point. Luckily, Dr. K is able to stand up for himself in an excellent way. At this point, I feel like he's started to get quite irritated, and I don't blame him. There's been a few things that are pretty out of order that have already happened. Newton is trying to counterbalance his rudeness because he has this objective of get the footage deleted, and he sees himself in a very self-important light, in my opinion. And he tries to counterbalance it by saying things like, "I'm really sorry and we love your music" and stuff like that. But it just comes across as totally insincere, like he doesn't really mean it.
No,
Mate,
we
listen.
love your art, we love your
No, you don't.
music,
You
but
just
we are
shouted at
trying
me.
to have...
You
Because
need
you're
to-
touching my friend.
I
Are
touched
you
her.
allowing her to
No,
touch
no,
you?
no.
I
No.
touched the flag.
No.
I touched the flag.
Doesn't
mate.
matter. You are
And
approaching
also,
her with
you're
your hand.
You're getting a bit aggressive, you
No,
are.
no.
I think we better leave.
That can be a good strategy to counterbalance stuff if you have to criticize someone, or perhaps you make fun of someone and tease them in a way that's a bit harsh but it's quite funny. You can counterbalance it by saying something nice. It tends to work quite well. But unfortunately, he just comes across like he's just being dishonest to everyone at this point. This guy Newton, in terms of his social skills, first of all, 0 out of 100 because he's being a bad person. I can't really see any argument that he's being a good person in this situation. However, in terms of what his aims are and stuff, he does have some level of ability to twist the situation, which I'd imagine comes from his experience working in the media, like in the Financial Times and stuff. And I'll give you some examples of that later. However, outside of his ability to like make false accusations and try to intimidate people by putting them in little traps and stuff, he doesn't really seem to have that much of a good understanding of and ability to read the situation, because his attempts at counterbalancing to his rudeness have just come across as clearly dishonest. If I was Newton, first of all, I would not want to be, and secondly, I would not be an asshole. But if for some reason I decided to have the same aim as him in that situation, I definitely would have first tried to reason with Dr. K in a more of a nice way and try to explain to him why, perhaps even if it was a made up reason, why it's important that we don't have our faces shown in the video, and try to be nice about it. Whereas instead, he's just gone in with rudeness and trying to be dominant straight away in a hostile way. You can be dominant in a way that is not as hostile, but he's definitely doing it in a way that's imposing his will on others. So he's kind of screwed up the situation. He probably expected Dr. K to be a pushover, and he probably doesn't have a social experience to know that was probably not going to happen, and he's just got his own ideas in his head of how he's important, etc. So here is the point where I think that Brendan, Dr. K's attitude starts to switch from reasoning the situation but being kind of a bit irritated to now he's now decided to some extent to start being defensively hostile back. He nods with his head tilted up, kind of like that, which is a sign that he's nodding but in a way that's like fake agreeing, and he's kind of taking the piss out of them with his nod, like, oh yeah, of course, yeah, whatever. There's that kind of nod. And additionally, he tightens his lips like this, I might not be doing it exactly the same as him, because I don't have the same emotions as him. Maybe if Newton storms in the room right now, I'll be able to replicate it properly. But he tightens his lips and his corner of his mouth go up slightly. So that's a sign of he's holding on to tension and he looks away. So if the nodding is him like seeing this guy as, I mean, this is my interpretation, right? I could be wrong. I think I'm probably right because I've got a lot of experience with this kind of stuff. He nods with his head tilted up, and that is him seeing the other person as less now. He's decided that you're kind of a less social status to me now, because this guy is being rude and hostile, not making any sense of his arguments. And then he turns away, showing that any connection that he's got with this guy there's a break in the connection. He's not trying to hold eye contact anymore. I mean, it's through sunglasses, but whatever. And then he does the tight lips thing, which is a sign of holding on to tension, holding on to anger. So I believe at this point, his mindset has made a dramatic shift at the point where he says, just don't do it. Where he's gone from trying to reason the situation to now I'm more in a mode of attacking back. Then there's an exchange for a while where Brendan, Dr. K, tries to explain as other people filming. So why is it one rule for him and a different rule for others? And several times this guy Newton doesn't really answer his counter argument about there's other people filming, and just talks over him and like gives like reasoning back that doesn't address the point. So he says that's absolutely fine, that's other people's business. But it doesn't address the point that Brendan is making, that he's being criticised his film and asked to delete it whilst other people are still filming. That's not that doesn't make sense. It doesn't explain why they don't care about other people filming, but they do care about him. It sounds like a nice answer, but sort of might sound like it makes sense if he wasn't really listening and thinking properly. And I think that he's got that kind of experience from his work in media, where as anyone with half a brain cell knows, the mainstream media is constantly being dishonest, usually not by lying directly and explicitly, but in tons and tons of other formats, which I obviously notice immediately all of the time due to my experience social skills coaching. He then says, that's just a relationship between me and you. So here he is again trying to be dominant in a really hostile and annoying way, because he's trying to frame what the relationship is between him and this guy that he doesn't know, Brendan. So what he's not managed to work out here is that this guy has already shown signs that he's willing to stick up for himself. So he's not really going to be like, okay, yes, I agree that is the relationship between me and you. Perhaps not saying that directly, but in any format, he's not going to start agreeing and being like, oh, okay, that makes sense then. So he's really, I think his level of how important he sees himself as and how powerful and high status he sees himself as has really screwed with his mind and his ability to perceive things in a way just accurate in social situations, as he's trying to set the frame that, yeah, this is what's going on between me and you, as if he's just going to suddenly fall apart. And again, another aggressive, annoying action. So at this point, Brendan is going to be holding on to quite a lot of anger. He's doing a really good job to not show it. He's got his hands in his pockets. I don't know, he might stand like that a lot, perhaps. Maybe that's his normal body language. But there's a fair chance he's got his hands in his pockets because he's trying to conceal his anger. And he's doing a good job of it. And I would agree that's probably the best plan for him to have in this situation. Like I said a while ago, I would give him a 97, 98 or 99 out of 100 for the whole thing. Brendan then says, who's allowed to record then, again referencing his point about it being one rule for him and another rule for other people walking past. They want him to delete his footage, but they don't care about other people walking past. Why? That doesn't make any sense. And again, this guy Newton just tries to dominate the situation without giving any reasoning. Even though this is him at this point being not a very nice person at all, by just trying to get this person to do something they don't want and not giving any proper reason. But on top of that, he's not assessing the situation properly. If this guy's already shown evidence, he's not going to be pushed around like that. And then he says, he gives a massive escalation at this point, as far as I'm concerned. He says, we will put a legal action into it.
So who's allowed to record you then?
Just making sure you're not recording us, yeah? Because if you are recording us, that when we are saying this, you're still recording, and then we will put a legal action into it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, we will put a legal action into it.
For what?
We will. I'm
Action
sorry, this is the end of the conversation.
So, as far as I'm concerned, if someone threatens you with legal stuff, this is very similar in terms of social dynamics to threatening someone with violence. If someone says to you, like, stop doing this, I'm going to knock you out, then what's happening is that they are saying, if you don't do or stop doing thing X, there's going to be a massive spike in negative consequences to you. The negative results are going to get really huge in a short space of time. And threatening legal action is very, very similar. You're basically warning them, threatening them, that there will be a huge spike in consequences if they continue these actions. The difference to violence is that violence is usually, the threat of violence is within a short time frame of the threat, whereas legal action takes a longer time frame. But still, in terms of how hostile you're being, I would say it's very similar to the level of hostility of, as if Newton basically just said to him, like, delete it, otherwise I'm gonna beat you up, basically. So he's increased even more by loads how much of an arsehole he's being and how hostile he's being. So I believe that Brendan at this point has already been holding on to anger for quite a while. Threatening someone with legal action because of the huge spike in consequences that you're communicating to them is likely to trigger people's fight or flight responses. Brendan in this situation, thankfully, is out of fight or flight. His fight responses are increasing and he's holding on to anger and he's concealing it. He's concealing it through limited body language, closed body language, so his hands in his pockets and stuff. Then the guy, Newton, says, you're not sharing this, again trying to order him around, not seeing that his strategy is failing. I mean, at this point, perhaps it's plausible, if we didn't know what happened next, that Brendan might be like, oh, I don't want to suffer legal consequences and maybe not understand about the law, that his strategy to get him to delete the footage could work. Obviously, that's not what ends up happening.
This is all right, we're protecting, and that's it.
But what right? I don't understand.
Image right.
Image right?
Yeah, we're not sharing this image right.
Are you from China?
That's not a question. The only thing we are arguing is that
Yeah.
we are protecting our own image right. You're not sharing.
But we're in public.
Brendan, again, is nodding with his head tilted up, showing that he doesn't really respect this guy Newton, holding on to a lot of anger, like I said. And then, as the guy says, don't share it, Brendan's friend comes in and says, please share me, again trying to create a joke to diffuse the situation, to which some people laugh.
Please share me.
Oh,
Yes.
yeah.
Brendan, Dr. K, again is not laughing because he's holding on to anger and sees it as unfair that they're trying to impose their way of thinking and what they want onto him, causing him a negative consequence potentially of having to delete his video, which he's made and he wants to have. I mean, it was live streamed anyway, and potential legal action and also more hostility socially. Newton tries to capitalize on the joke that was made by pointing to Brendan's friend with his palm up like that. The reason he does this, I think, is to try to draw attention to the lightheartedness and get the situation to end and have Brendan leave and delete his footage. And he also says that we're on a schedule and says that this is the end of the conversation.
I'm really sorry, we're on a schedule here.
So what he's trying to do here is to cut the conversation off, leaving Brendan with the threat of legal penalties if he doesn't delete the footage. So he seems to have given up on the approach of just trying to dominate him socially, which is stupid. He should have known that wasn't going to work straight away, and it definitely shouldn't have been his first option. First, there was the approach of the girl who come forwards and was trying to nicely ask him. Newton didn't let that conclude. He could have waited to see if that had worked. Maybe that could have worked and she could have convinced him to delete the footage in some other form, but instead he just cut her off, used his own strategy of trying to dominate the situation, didn't see it wasn't working. Then he's done a massive escalation of threatening legal penalties, and his new strategy is he's trying to leave that threat there and close the conversation so that Brendan's left with that threat lingering, hoping that he won't realise that that's not actually how the law works in the UK. So now, understandably, Brendan is very angry. The situation is very tense. They've come over, tried to order him around, done all these threats and everything. Brendan starts to use the term mate, which, being someone from Southeast England myself, I understand that in this context, in the way that he said it, is definitely him starting to show hostility. So when people say mate to each other in Southeast England, sometimes it can be friendly, sometimes it's a sign of like disrespect. In this case, in the tone he's saying it in the context, it's a sign of disrespect. He also mentions about him being communist. I think it's about the communist flag at this point. He is saying that to some extent. I mean, it's a true statement. I looked up about the flag and everything, and the design of the Chinese flag is actually to do with communism. China is a country that is supposed to be communist. It's true, but he's also saying it as a bit of a dig at him, because Brendan obviously sees that political structure and ideology as not good, which lots of people agree with, obviously. So he says that as a bit of a dig. He says mate as a bit of a dig and sign of disrespect towards this guy who's been harassing him. And then the guy tries to claim that it's racist.
He's being
Hello
racist,
everyone, we're just going to turn it round.
So he's trying to jump on, this is something he does like kind of good, I guess, is he's able to jump on something that's happened and try and twist it. Obviously it's bad because he's doing it for bad reasons. But he jumps on it and he starts trying to frame Brendan's racist and trying to push this frame that he's being racist straight away. Again, I think that this is likely he's fairly fast at doing this due to his experience working in newspapers and stuff. Brendan has been racist, which is a huge taboo in the West, and there's like laws against certain types of speech to do with that. So it's just adding an extra additional piece of hostility to the situation. Brendan's friend again tries to come in to calm things down. He does this loads of times unsuccessfully. Brendan doesn't want it to happen, I think, because he wants to like stick up for free speech and stuff, and also not just in terms of political principles, but this guy, especially Newton, but also the whole group, have just come over and start trying to bully him basically at the piano that he's usually at in his own country. So he's understandably wanting to fight back.
That's true.
We're not in communist China now, you know.
Oh, I'm sorry. This is racist now. We have to...
No, we're not in communist China. We're in a free country.
He plays the piano a little bit to show that he doesn't care and he's not taking this guy seriously. That's what he's trying to communicate there, as far as I can tell. Then he says, when in Rome, do as the Romans do. So I think this is clear to basically everyone, that he's saying that when you're in a certain country, you abide by their laws. This is something that I do as well. When I go to another country, I'm way more respectful than I would be here even, of all of their social norms and everything. Because otherwise I think it's kind of disrespectful to go to another country. Even if I don't agree with some of their laws or whatever, I'm not going to go and break them. So he says, when in Rome, do as the Romans do. This guy Newton, I believe that he definitely understood. A, because it's obvious. B, because he seems to have a certain level of intelligence in some form that he would understand, but it's a saying. And also the tone of voice that he uses back suggests to me, I can't really exactly explain why, but it suggests to me that he knows that he's purposely misinterpreting it when he says back, "Are you a Roman?"
We don't want
When
to
you're
share
in Rome, you
ambitions.
do as the Romans do. Sorry.
You're Roman.
You're Roman. Here, I think he's just trying to twist the argument by using an alternate interpretation, by focusing on the literal definition of the word rather than the obvious meaning of the saying. He's trying to discredit what he's saying. At this point, it's pretty obvious that so far the 3 stages of their plan obviously don't plan this out in like a drawing board beforehand, but people kind of plan stuff out as they go in their minds in a social situation like this. It's quite obvious that the 3 stages of their plan haven't worked so far. 1, the first girl coming over and asking him to delete it. That guy Newton didn't let that plan come to its conclusion and see if it was even going to work. He steps in, starts trying to be dominant over the guy and like order him around and stuff, hoping that he can just overpower him with his confidence. And of his like kind of twisting and little tricks he's doing where he's ignoring what he's saying. Then he starts to add extra threats to the situation. Legal action, racism, and things like that. So at this point, it's become clear that Brendan, the 3rd plan, isn't working. Brendan says, "I'm quite happy if you call the police, go for it." So then what happens is the other woman in red coat here, who was seen in another video beforehand, shaking hands and being friendly with Brendan, starts to enter the conversation, and she approaches the situation from a different angle. Like I said before, they seem to have gone in with this mindset of there's no conclusion to the situation other than the video gets deleted. And I think that's because of a woman who's the alleged spy in the background has said to them like this has to get deleted, and she's like their boss in some form or another, so they have to listen to her. So now she comes in with stage 4 of the attempt, and what she does is she tries to use the comfort that they've built earlier and a bit of connection they built earlier. So there was another clip where they were shaking hands and being friendly with her, and he also asks her to dance at the start of the live stream. She says no, it's a friendly interaction, whereas he didn't really have any interaction with Newton. It didn't seem like he had any comfort built with him. So she tries to use that connection and comes across and tries to use a bit more of a submissive approach, a bit more of like a friendly submissive approach, because the domineering approach hasn't worked.
Yeah, it's a saying.
Sorry, sorry. We don't want to do it. Yeah, sorry.
You don't want to do what?
Yeah,
To share our image.
To share our image.
Well, then
online.
you've got to walk away then.
She's using a high-pitched voice, which is a display of submissiveness. Girls often do this to flirt if they want to flirt in a way that is more submissive. Usually girls are more often more submissive in terms of like flirting and sex, and guys are more often dominant. Obviously there's exceptions, but she is using a higher pitch, and she's using open palms as well, and she obviously perceives herself as having built some comfort with him earlier, so she's trying to interact in a way that's trying to be more friendly and warm. He isn't really having it, and then he starts to talk about how we're in Britain, so the laws are different here. I feel like at this point he might be thinking that she, at least, not so much the guy Newton, she at least just genuinely, a part of his mind thinking that she might just genuinely not understand the law and stuff. She then says that she's also British 4 times.
Say, I'm also British. I'm also British, okay? I'm also British. I'm also British, but I don't want to use my image.
You've got a Chinese flag there.
And this is her attempt to raise her level of status and value in that conversation by adding more credibility to her knowledge of the law and everything, and trying to say like, yeah, this is like within legal grounds, it's our right, etc. I think they say a few times, to try and convince him that she's correct by saying she's also British 4 times, and he isn't really having it. He is basically like, no, you're not. I mean, maybe she's a British citizen, but culturally, she definitely seems like she's not. She's got a strong Chinese accent. She's in this group of people. I mean, perhaps she has other friends who are British, who knows? And she doesn't seem to understand the law. She's even got a Chinese flag, which makes it even more ridiculous, but she's trying to claim that she's a British person. Like I said, legally, perhaps she is a British citizen, but culturally, you can kind of tell that she isn't the same as perhaps someone who grew up in the UK who has Chinese parents would be. So he mentions about the Chinese flag, and he says, show us your Chinese flag to her to try and show it on the live stream camera, to which the famous part comes in, which I can't help but always laugh at. And he just goes, don't touch her, straight away. But what actually happens, if you check, is first he says it more quietly. He says, stop touching her, or don't touch her. Then what happens, I believe, like I said, all of this is my opinion. I could be wrong. I think I'm probably right about most of it. So he says, stop touching her. And then he says it loud the second time, because he, first of all, said that as a reaction. Then he realizes, oh, now I can frame him as like being pervy and touching her, and he quickly tries to capitalize it again. That's something he is quite sharp at. Obviously, who cares, because he's being a bad person, but he, in terms of like social skills, I guess in a bad way, he's kind of good at capitalizing on stuff and trying to mislead people. So he really amplifies that and goes for it, tries to take advantage of the situation, and sees that there's an opportunity here to start framing him like he's some kind of perv.
Why you're touching her? Stop touching her! Don't touch her, please. Do not touch her. Please, you are not the same age. Please do not touch her. Don't touch her. Please don't touch her. Please don't. Yeah, don't touch her.
Brennan then steps back as if he's sort of scared and shocked. It's quite clear from his facial expression that he's not actually scared or anything. He's just kind of overreacting a bit on purpose to highlight how much the guy is overreacting, that Newton guy, which I think is a good move by him, because that guy is attempting to draw attention to the situation and try and get people to start thinking that this piano guy is a pervert who's just touching this girl for no reason. So by him stepping back, it looks like he's being attacked, which is obviously what's actually happening. And yeah, I think that's a good move by him personally. Newton then starts saying, you are not the same age, which is another part that really makes me laugh. I've seen a few remixes of this where people do it to music and stuff, and that's fucking hilarious. So him saying that doesn't really make any sense, because what does that mean? If you are the same age, it's okay to go around touching girls inappropriately if they're the same age as you? Obviously not. So the reason he's saying that is because he's identified, framed this guy as a pervert. He's touched her, he says stop touching her, and he's like, yes, frame this guy as a pervert. Then he gets that plan, and then he says it really loud to try and draw attention to the situation. He repeats it, I don't know how many times he repeats it, I'm not going to count. Someone else can count if they want and tell me. But I'd imagine it must have been like 30 times he kept repeating. He was really trying to milk that opportunity to try and frame this guy as some old pervert. And then he's like, oh, also he's old. You are not the same age. And he's like trying to sort of start leading towards this guy being some kind of paedophile almost. So a good comeback to that, I mean, it is, I would not have used the comeback at the time to say that what does that mean it's okay to touch girls if they are the same age as you, because then it adds weight to his framing that he's trying to push of this person being pervy. However, going back, it's a good thing to note, and just another example of how this person is being dishonest on purpose. That is very strong evidence at one point alone that he's being purposely dishonest. Because if you asked him, is it okay for guys to molest girls as long as they're the same age? He would obviously say no. Yeah, that's basically what he's claiming in that situation there. So like I said, he keeps repeating, don't touch her, stop touching her, please stop touching her, etc, etc, desperately trying to get other people to start looking on. And he tries to do it in like a panicked voice tone as well, like, oh my god, she's being touched, like, please stop touching her. And he adds like some panic to his voice tone. Again, it's hard for me to recreate it without the actual emotions, but you can just hear it in the video. Then what happens is this girl in the background, one who first approached Brendan, starts to get her camera out behind the yellow sheet of paper. The other girl with a red coat from a minute ago, who just tried to persuade him again to delete the video, starts to say, don't shoot her. I saw a video of Brendan saying how he was worried that they was going to shoot him like with a gun and stuff. And a few people getting confused about it and saying, oh, that means don't shout at her, she's just like got bad English and stuff like that. She's talking to, I'm certain she's talking to that girl who's now sneakily getting her camera out behind the yellow paper, who also apparently has charges against her in China for violating their law, which is apparently called image rights, which they're referencing in this attack. So she's got her camera out behind the paper, and then she starts looking for an opportunity to start filming, starts stepping back, checking to see if he's turned away. And then once he started turning away, she starts filming him. So obviously she's done that in a way that Brendan doesn't notice. If he did notice that, it would be a really strong point to his argument to point out and be like, you're filming me. So that just takes away credibility from that argument even more. But it also, again, shows the dishonest nature of at least some of the individuals in this group of people, that she is sneakily getting the camera out whilst they're telling him to not film them and about their image rights and stuff. And then she sneakily films him in the background. And there's another part a little bit later where she seems to sort of see that he's might be able to see her again. She puts her phone down a bit as if she's not really filming. Brendan's friend again comes in unsuccessfully to try to calm things down. It's kind of seen as the right thing to do, right? So whenever there's a hostile situation, to come in and try and calm stuff down. But this kind of pushed to us that that's the right thing to do. But that's not the right thing to do in every situation. Sometimes there needs to be some hostility in order to cause ultimately a good result. Let's take a crazy example, Hitler in World War II. If there wasn't hostility done back against Hitler, then what would have happened now? So I think he's in the wrong for doing this. He's just being kind of cliche and just wanting to calm the situation down. His friend Brendan has already said multiple times that he doesn't want that to happen. So I think that's kind of a bad move by him, and he's kind of doing that just because he feels like that's the right thing to do. I mean, he's not being a bad person, but I feel like that's a bad move socially. Because this situation obviously needs someone to be sticking up to these people. At this point, if I was in this situation, I'd probably be estimating that these people, especially that Newton guy, go around bullying other people quite a bit. And personally, I feel like if you encounter someone who you strongly believe goes around bullying other people a lot, and you're someone who is capable of sticking up for yourself, you've got the confidence, etc. to do that, I think it's kind of your duty to show them that they can't just go around bullying other people personally. Newton is trying to push the frame that he's being racist and touching her, which is totally ridiculous. But I mean, without the camera, who knows? Maybe he could have convinced people, or the police officers who turn up, that he was being racist and pervy. Possibly. I don't know. So it's good that he was filming. Meanwhile, the girl in the red coat is still going for a more friendly, submissive approach, and she says, we're just trying to celebrate Chinese New Year. Again, that doesn't actually mean anything in the argument. That's not really a counter argument to anything that's going on. It's just something that sounds nice. It's something that if you're not really listening properly, not really thinking properly, feels like that person's the victim now. But really it's just not relevant to the situation. Newton keeps repeating, stop touching her, etc., don't touch her. It's starting to look ridiculous. I mean, it was already ridiculous, but he's even according to himself at this point, in my opinion, starting to, it's not really being plausible for him to attempts to try and push this frame anymore, that this guy Brendan is pervy and touched his friend, plus he says that he's being racist. I mean, all of these things are classic things that the media tends to try and smear people with. So again, I mean, obviously this stuff does actually happen. People are racist and people are pervy, and that's bad. But it's something that the media tends to smear people with quite a lot. And I think he's got that as his experience and his go-to thing that he's trying to do due to his experience in working apparently in the Financial Times. So he's now repeating this so much, it's clearly getting ridiculous. And Brendan starts to, I think, he starts to find it really stupid and funny.
Do you think I'm trying to touch your friend?
And this guy is clearly just trying to be misleading and dishonest on purpose. And he keeps repeating himself over and over, and he starts doing like a dance to him, right? Personally, I would have said to him, started saying how he is like a broken record, maybe some of his programming has gone wrong, and he needs to have a few of his wires fixed, and recommend him to a local tech shop in the station somewhere so that he can fix his repeating voice that he's got going on, as it might affect him in the future. So Brendan starts to mime him like this, and then the guy goes, "Are you miming me?" And then Brendan says, "Yeah," and he goes, "Yeah, I am, yeah." And he points downwards in like a fast stabbing motion. So this is a sign of a lot of anger, but he's holding back and not showing. Pointing is an aggressive action the vast majority of the time. He's also doing it downwards, and the force he's doing it with, he's clearly holding back some like intent to, I mean, whenever you get angry, it gives you intent to use violence ultimately, right? It charges up your muscles and allows you to like, I'm pretty sure it allows you to punch harder and stuff. So he's got that pent up energy in him, and it shows a bit as he does that action. He does a really good job of concealing his anger overall. And then he says, "What are you going to do about it?" Which is a great thing to say. Obviously that means like, what are you going to do about it? As if he's going to try and fight him or something. Newton now doing this action, the palms down, pushing down, is a sign that you often see among teachers and police officers, where they're trying to say basically, "I'm in charge, you calm down." So he starts doing that to him, and he asks for the guy's name, again trying to go down the legal route, as if he's gonna now be like, "Oh yeah, my name is," and give him his full name and address and stuff. Which just goes to show that this guy Newton, he is quite stupid in social situations, it seems. He does have a strong point, but I think all of his strong points are just based on his media experience. He's got strong points that he's using for bad purposes, which makes them not strong points. But in terms of his objective, he's got some strong points in being able to quickly mislead the situation and take advantage of opportunities. But he's just got no social awareness. This guy is clearly not going to suddenly give him all of his details now. And he just assumes that he's going to be able to take this legal route, frame him as with all these false accusations and stuff, and it's just going to work, which again is evidence to me that he feels like he's really important and special. And there's further evidence of that is that he's selling t-shirts saying "Don't touch her," and as well as not backing down, it seems to be completely shameless about the situation. This guy, it seems like, I think people use the term narcissist way too much, and I think it's usually unhelpful to sort of put people in categories and stuff. But this guy definitely seems like, if there's a spectrum from not a narcissist to a narcissist, that he's like headed pretty close to 100% narcissist, in my opinion. Brendan's friend again comes in trying to diffuse the situation. I think he's doing a wrong thing personally, and then Brendan says it's about sticking up for free speech. That's why I think he's doing a wrong thing, because this is a situation where someone needs to stick up for themselves and principles and stuff. Not every situation should be diffused, really, like I gave an example earlier. Newton then is dishonest again 2 more times at least. He says, "We were just appreciating the music," trying to frame that as that was the main thing that they were doing. They were standing there appreciating his music, and then he came over and this guy started being racist and touching his friend and stuff. Nutter. So he's dishonest there. He is also He's also says a direct, explicit lie by saying, we're not telling you what to do. If you look at the rest of the conversation, it's quite clear that he is telling Brendan what to do, obviously. So he says that, so he's directly lying. So he does a lot of things where he's dishonest in a way that isn't explicitly directly lying. He also has just directly lied a bunch of times, I think. Definitely this one time here, he says something that's clearly a lie, we're not telling you what to do. And he's been telling him what to do loads and loads for the last few minutes. So now the police turn up. We've got 2 police officers, a male police officer and a female police officer. The first police officer, but by the way, I'm from the UK, I'm from southeast England. I go into St Pancras station quite a bit, several times a week. I haven't seen Brendan yet. If I do, then I'll walk up to him and accuse him of touching me. No, I'm joking. So, the police in the UK, I think, generally are quite reasonable and quite good compared to other countries. However, lots of people complain, I'd probably agree, that they tend to be kind of pushing the woke narrative to a point where it's not really reasonable to do so. So I'm all for things like people having equality and things like that, obviously. I mean, who wouldn't? But the kind of a woke narrative, without getting into it too much, is being pushed in a way that is not reasonable and ultimately bad. And I think that police officers can be subject to that. And that's what this female police officer seems to show a bit later. This first police officer, the male police officer, he seems shocked that this person is complaining and tells them, well, you're in a public place, so if you're going to be on camera, sorry.
So basically, they were filming, and I would say we're nicely approaching them, so please use our image. Is that right?
You're in the public place.
I know, but we were walking around with saying,
if they're filming, you're in a public place.
So he says that to them. That's actually the law. So I've found out what the law actually is. So apparently the law is that you can film people in public if there's no reasonable expectation of privacy, like you're in a toilet or changing rooms, or it's like a private event, etc. Definitely not in the middle of possibly the busiest train station in the UK, maybe even in Europe, on a public piano, tons of CCTV, is not a reasonable expectation of privacy in a public place. So he knows the law, he's told him that. Then this other police officer, Kerry, starts trying to tell him not to put it on his YouTube channel. So I think she's doing that because she's worried about offending these people, and because of, like I said, the woke narrative, she's placing unreasonably high importance on not offending people from other cultures. So I'd place some importance on that to not offend people from other cultures. So like if they were making a mistake, I would be more inclined to let them off because they're guests here in the UK, my country. But she's doing it to an extent that is very unreasonable as far as I'm concerned. She shows that straight away by saying, I don't want this on your YouTube channel. It doesn't really explain why she doesn't want it on her YouTube channel.
If we're having a police matter, you need to put that phone down.
No, we're asked because I'm going to record this for
yeah, that's the thing.
If you're on the
You're not live streaming this on your channel though.
your face will be on that
And the female police officer, her name is Kerry apparently. It seems like Brendan knows her from before, from being in the station. She's been on duty there and they spoke before. She tells the person helping Brendan filming to put the camera down, which is kind of unreasonable in my opinion. I feel like she's just doing this because she is kind of scared of the situation personally and she doesn't want to be filmed. It's totally within their rights to film her. She's also filming them with a body camera, and Brendan makes a point a little later that he needs it as evidence to the filming. So I think she's just telling him to turn off the camera and not put it on his YouTube channel because A, she doesn't want to offend the people who seem to be from another country, and she, to a point that it's very unreasonable how much importance she's placing on that. And then plus, I think she's kind of just scared that she's going to look bad, which obviously ends up happening. and she doesn't want to be filmed. Very unreasonable request from her, both in terms of my limited understanding of legal situations and definitely socially as well.
They'll probably start shouting.
Listen.
Yeah.
Come and talk to me.
I'll talk to you. I'll
Please
talk to you,
come
Kerry.
and talk to me.
I'll talk to you, Kerry, at the piano, man.
Yeah, but can you just come and talk to me?
I'll talk to you here.
This is not to go on your channel, my love.
Well-
This is me talking to you.
Well, listen, Kerry, we're in a public space.
Listen, let me just have a conversation
Sure.
with you with this doing in my face. Please.
Kerry, if you're recording
Listen.
we record all
Listen,
the time.
this is going on your YouTube channel.
It-
But I need to speak to you without this being on your YouTube channel.
Well, what
please.
about what? We're in a public space.
Listen, can I just have a conversation with you, please? Without your friend video.
No,
Kerry?
because the camera never lies. So.
Listen, I've got my camera on
Okay,
and
so
we're
I've
just
got my
having a
camera.
conversation.
Let's have a conversation then.
This is going on your YouTube channel and I don't want it to go on your YouTube
Well,
channel.
don't talk to me then, Kerry.
Listen.
She's at Kerry. We're in Britain.
Right.
We're in a public space. We've got a free country.
The first of the matter is that you're
I'm not
shouting
making
communist comments at them. is what
No,
you're stating.
I said you're waving a communist flag. That's all I said.
And the hands were meant to be going towards her. Were you trying to touch her in that
I was
regard?
not trying to touch it. That's why I have a camera.
The group then walks off. Brendan talks to the live stream camera for a bit longer, and then he heads back over to the group. As he's heading back over to the group, he says they'll probably start shouting at us. So he's now attempting to frame them as unreasonably hostile, which I think is fair and correct. But he's doing this strategically on purpose to just try and add weight and attention to that feature of these people in this group. So as he's walking over, Kerry, the other police officer, sees that he's walking over. She's in a group of 2 police officers. She doesn't want a situation to escalate by Brendan interacting with the group of Chinese people. So she walks out and stalks him straight away. I think that's a good move by her as a police officer, and to de-escalate the situation socially, or rather to stop it from escalating more, because had he gone over and started speaking to her, increased hostility is pretty likely to have broken out. So that move I feel like was good from her. So at about 20 minutes and 40 seconds, I believe at this point, the police officer, apparently called Kerry, starts to realise that she's losing the argument and she might be in the wrong, as Brendan continues to stick up for himself. And this causes her to start getting kind of nervous and annoyed at the same time. Then Brendan starts to completely dismantle her argument and show her that she's being unreasonable and not doing things correctly. And then he takes a step back, and I think the reason he takes a step back is because she's kind of in a situation where it's a massive deal for her to lose the argument, because she's a police officer, and also she's a woman who's smaller than him as well. So I think basically that both those things together, and the third feature of he's winning the argument obviously and she's clearly in the wrong, those features together have caused Brendan to think she might be getting a bit sort of feel very under pressure. So he steps back to try to alleviate her negative emotions and help her to not feel as under pressure, which I think is a good move by him, because otherwise because she's in a position where she can't really just be like, oh yeah, you're right, due to her being a police officer. I mean, she could really, that'd be a reasonable thing to do, but it's kind of complicated as a police officer to do that. He's perceived that accurately, and he takes a step back. Also, they seem to know each other and be friends to some extent, to stop her feeling as bad and to keep her remaining calmer. She's starting to get annoyed at this point, and I think Brendan noticed her as well. Like I said, Brendan, I'll give 97 to 99 out of 100 to this social situation. At about 21 minutes and 5 seconds, Brendan obviously is in the right. He knows that from the beginning. He now, I think, feels like he needs to teach the police officer, Kerry, about why she's wrong for future situations, which I think is the correct thing to do. Obviously, this is going to piss her off more, but I feel like it's totally necessary to do. At about 21 minutes, 25 seconds, I think it was, Kerry talks about, oh, what was this thing about your hand going towards the girl? So what's happened here is this guy Newton at first was trying to basically frame the situation, get people to draw attention to the situation, like this guy is just raping this girl in public or something mental, and like screaming and acting panic, like, oh my god, this guy is touching up a girl who's next to a piano. And that didn't work, obviously. I mean, he's repeated it loads and loads and loads of times, just desperately try to get people to start thinking about it. Realise it's not working. Now what he's done is he's downgraded his accusation a bit. Instead of saying he's touching her, he says his hand went towards her. So he's tried to make it so his argument is a bit more believable. I mean, technically his hand did go towards her, I guess, which means that it's not like a direct lie as well, which is another sneaky feature of it. But the way he's conveying this piece of information is aimed clearly at trying to make it look like his hand's going towards her in a way that is harassment and the guy being pervy. So now Kerry is clearly losing the argument. Brendan's explained that he didn't touch her with a tone of like, that's ridiculous, which it was. And then he starts saying what happened and talking about how he mentioned we're not in China and that's not racist. Then Kerry, who by the way again is doing this palms down motion I mentioned a minute ago, trying to dominate the situation in a bit more of a less hostile way. It's kind of like the same way that you dominate like your own child, right? So it's not in a way that's aimed at hurting them, it's more in a way that's aimed at like you're in charge for like a good purpose. So she's trying to do that. Like I said, it's common amongst police officers and teachers. Then she tries to say exactly when he talks about that's not racist and saying that he said that they're from China. So what she's trying to do here is try to frame it as we actually agree and see your point is the same as mine. But I don't really understand why she's trying to do that. To me, it just seems like a bit of a desperate attempt to try to win the argument with Brendan. She's trying to basically communicate that we actually have the same idea and you actually agree with me. But she hasn't really got any backing with reasoning as to how she's doing that. Then that doesn't really work. At this point, I feel like Kerry on the inside is starting to lose it and starting to get just very angry because she's clearly in the wrong and she wants to be in the right because she's a police officer. That gives her a lot of pressure to be in the right, but she's not. And she's starting to get annoyed and you can tell this from her facial expression. She starts to step away and try to like distance herself from the situation, but she knows she's lost now. Brendan starts to have a bit of a tone of being a bit exasperated and frustrated, which I'd imagine you would be when a police officer seems to be sticking up for people who just come over to you, try to bully you and try to shout it at you and threatened you with legal action, tried to frame you as a racist and a pervert who goes around touching girls by pianos. So I can see why he would feel exasperated at this point. Kerry then looks away and again disconnecting from the situation. She's started to disconnect from the conversation now with distance and with eye contact because she knows she's losing the situation. Then Brendan says to tell them something and she kind of A, loses her temper, but B, also to some extent uses this as an opportunity to release some of her anger at him, cuts him off and tells him with aggressive body language and tone, I'm not telling them anything you tell me to tell them, and then walks off, which kind of like makes it something like she sort of won a bit in a minor way because she like told him off and then left. So yeah, I felt like she got quite desperate there, got angry, just did the wrong thing from the start really, because she was scared about the implications of woke culture, and I just feel like didn't really have enough confidence and understanding of the situation and of what's just and right to be a good police officer in that situation. So after that, nothing of any real significance really happens. that was my analysis. I coach social skills, things like how to not run out of things to say, how to be funny, how to flirt and date, how to overcome your nerves, how to be persuasive, body language. In this situation, I was going through conflict, which is quite an interesting area of social skills. You don't really get much opportunity to practice it. You can practice conversation all of the time when you're talking, but conflict, you can't really just start arguments with people so that you can practice it, unless you're Newton, of course. So check out the rest of my videos. If you like this, please subscribe, give a thumbs up. I post videos on social skills. We also do one-to-one coaching, as well as a completely free trial session on social skills. So if you're looking to not run out of things to say, be more funny, get better at social skills, overcome your nerves, understand situations better, check out the link in the description or go to our website, socialshortcuts.com, and you can book a free trial session. That was Ryan. Big up free speech. I'll be back and I'll be in St Pancras looking for you, Brendan. I will be looking out for you, protecting you from random harassment from people. See you soon.